Hey guys, for this this next recipe, I'm going to do it on the fly. I haven't prepped anything, I haven't pulled anything out. I'm just making my version of seafood salad, basically the Surimi dish that you would find like at Subway. It's pretty low in carbs, pretty decent in protein. It's just something I like to eat as a snack or as a meal. So I am just going to go ahead and get with it. Not a lot of ingredients in this. I will pull what I need as I go and try to fill you in. So yeah, I have some stuff left out from my last little recipe that's going to help a little bit. But here we go. All right, so first thing I need is onion and celery. All right. So some onions, these are sweet onions. I'm going to pick the smallest one. That being said, it's still too big for what I need. So I'm probably going to use, I'll use a small half, if you will. When you want to do a diced onion, you cut the non-root side. One thing I hate about onions is the paper. Anywho, so if I don't try to get some of this off, it's going to wind up trying to stick to itself and get into my mixed onions. All right, so then I'm going to cut a little less than half, but through the root side here. Use that for something else. Try to keep the paper off of the board. Find a layer that it'll peel at. There you go. Make sure there's no paper on it. When you want to dice an onion, this is the root side. Since I cut less than half, I don't have any root to hold it together. But I'm going to basically cut thin slices, but not all the way through. So now I have it all sliced. Some chefs go that way, horizontally. I do not. In the finished product, it doesn't make a difference. If I was in a restaurant trying to make perfect brunoise, that would be one thing. I'm just trying to do this quickly. I'm not going to teach you how to cut. That'll be a different video. But I sliced it vertically. Now I'm going to slice this approximately the same width. Even this is quite a bit of onion for this size recipe. Normally I would take this piece that was holding it together and chop it up as well, but this is already more onion than I really need for this recipe. Since I've cut it both ways, if I just give it a little smush, it just falls apart into a dice. Hope you can see that. All right, I've got my mixing bowl here. This is a mixing bowl from my stand mixer. I don't use the stand mixer for this recipe either. I just use the bowl. I like large chunks of the seafood mixture, the surimi, so if I use the mixer, it will just destroy it. But anywho, keep going here. Onions in the bowl. Doesn't have to be perfect. Away. Celery. Probably had this celery for, I don't know, several days. So it's brown on the end. I'm just going to try to grab some of these leaves out. They will give the finished mixture a little bit of a bitterness that I don't want. You don't have to be perfect. Once again, for most things, there's a thing called mirepoix, carrots, onion, and celery. It's usually 2 parts onion, 1 part carrot, 1 part celery. Even though I'm not using carrot in this, I'm going to use approximately the same amount. I'm cutting the browned ends off here. All right. Now, once again, if I was in a restaurant, I would pull these stalks of celery apart, carefully slice them lengthwise, and then turn them and cut them similar to how I did the onion. But this is for me, and I don't care that the shapes are perfect. So I'm just gonna take it right off the bunch here. I will try to cut these fairly thin. Trying to go for about half as much as the onion I just used. One more slice. Oop. There we go. So I got my one more slice there. Got a little bit thick on that end. I'll keep it in the bag. It kind of helps to retain some of the moisture. The bags are perforated. There's lots of holes, so they're not going to get drowned in their own off-gassing. It's going to give it a quick chop. Once again, I don't care about perfect shapes. I'm just trying to break it into a little bit of a even mixture. Once again, I like the crunch. So there's our celery. Fly away. Right in the bowl. Once again, doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna grab some of this out of the fridge. This is my own pickles. From time to time I'll buy bread and butter pickles or sweet pickles, whatever you want to call them. And then I also buy the spicy ones, and I've always saved the spicy juice. I'll dump out the sweet juice, I'll dump the spicy. These aren't really hot, it just gives them a little more depth of flavor. I'm gonna pull a couple of things here. See some of my tricks. Mayonnaise, Duke's mayonnaise. Just, I don't really care. I typically buy the olive oil mayonnaise. But that one was, it's another one I like. What do I got? I got mayonnaise. Normally I would make this recipe with 50% Greek yogurt and 50% mayonnaise. But I don't have any Greek yogurt, so I'm going straight mayonnaise. Lemon juice. I'm not the kind of person to buy a lemon and squeeze it and do all that jazz. I'm just using the bottle. This is real lemon juice. It's not from concentrate. Not that I know of. Not from concentrate, right on the label. But it's the real deal. Anywho, the main thing that I take from the pickles is the actual juice. I'm just gonna put a couple tablespoons. That'll give it a little bite, and it'll give it a little, zing. I try not to stick my fingers in the pickle jar. It's kind of disgusting. If you do, it's not the end of the world. But it, whatever's on your fingers is going to wind up staying in that jar, and it's going to be there for as long as you use it. This pickle juice will get poured into the next round of pickles, and it just keeps going and going and going. Pickles, tasty, crunchy. Let's give them a quick chop. It does not have to be perfect. I will do videos in the future that I'll probably spend a little bit more time trying to make things more of a restaurant quality cut, things like that. But I'll tell you what, when I'm cooking at home for me or for guests, which is rare, but the last thing I want to do is take some of the fun and the joy out of it. So when I'm doing it for myself, I do it for myself. I just do it quickly, efficiently. If you're using a bottle of lemon juice, make sure to give it a little shake. There are solids in there. If you don't get them mixed up, you'll more or less get water. Just a little dash or two. That might be a tablespoon, not very much. Too much of the citric acid will break the mayonnaise down, turn it into a watery mess. It's not what you want. All right. You can use whatever kind of surimi you like. I use these Lewis Kemp. I typically use 2 pounds for this recipe. I still, as a chef, I don't like to make tiny little amounts of anything. I like to make a good sized dose and move on. Like I said before, I don't like it to shred apart. This is actually layers. They make it into like a paste and then they roll it. And then this is the flake style, so it's kind of jagged and cut up already. And that's what I want. If I were to put it in the mixer with any sort of a paddle or a dough hook or anything like that, this would get destroyed. That's fine for sandwiches or anything like that, but I typically eat this as it is, just as like the salad. I might have it with some lettuce or something, but I don't usually put any bread or anything with carbohydrates in it because it's already got some carbs. I'm going to show you how I break this down. Once again, I already have my two liquids. I have my onion, I have my celery. I'm going to throw some spices in here, but I want the spices to kind of stick to the meat, if you will. So what I do is not on the front side, the display side, but you flip it over and you can see the whole package. Just cut an X in it. And you can pop out some of them and just basically break them up. They'll come right apart. I don't want tons of, if they're really juicy, these are not. I'll just do the whole thing by hand. Once I have a little space, I just kind of give it a little squeeze. It will break up on its own. Like I said, I don't want it to turn into teeny tiny flakes. Just a little rough breakup. And hopefully you can see this when I pour it in, but it is all the chunks. A few of them might be sticking together. I actually like that. When they stick together, you get a nice big chewy mouthful, if you will. I'm a texture person. Texture to me is just as important as flavor. And so with this in a sandwich, it's fine to be, you know, small shredded pieces. But for eating it as, you know, as an entree, if you will, I'll have this for lunch or a snack. I want the pieces large. Basically, I'm just pulling some out to make some room. If you don't have any room, it's not very easy to break this stuff up. So just give it a quick push. It does not have to be 100% broken up because we still have to mix it. It's gonna get broken up and distributed as we mix it. There we go. Plop. I did see a large chunk in there. Oop, it was already broken up. It had lost its integrity. Make sure your hands are always clean before you're doing this. I'm touching this with my hands because it's mine. I don't have any issues touching my own food. So grab some spices. One thing I'm not going to use is salt. There is plenty of salt in the mayonnaise and plenty of salt in the surimi. I'm going to use some granular garlic, which is not garlic salt. There's no additional sodium in this. I'm going to use some granulated onion, ditto, just dried onion, some cayenne pepper. Not a lot, but I like the kick that it gives. You can use whatever you want. I typically add a little dill and, for giggles, some thyme, not a ton. So I'm going to pay attention to my expert measuring techniques here. This is my cayenne. If you put that much cayenne into like a liquid or sauce of some sort, yeah, it's going to add some heat. But in this, for some reason, it really doesn't add a lot of heat. I hate these stupid tops with the little holes in them. This is dill. It says dill weed. If you go to the store and buy it, it's inexpensive. But yeah, I'm not getting anything out of it. Try to get your finger underneath there. About maybe 2 teaspoons. Dill is pretty potent. If you put too much in there, you will know it. Not at first, but given a day, it'll become very powerful and overpowering even. Just a tiny pinch, if you will, of thyme. That's it. Not super important to bust out your measurements here. The onion, I just give it a little spread on the top. Garlic. Granulated garlic is actually, it's dehydrated garlic that's ground into a powder. So if you put too much, it'll basically impart a very onion-esque heat. But I'm gonna put a couple, a teaspoon. Not much more than a teaspoon. Remember, this is only 2 pounds. I know that's probably hard to hear. Not a lot of people are making, by the time we've got all the ingredients in this, the 2 pounds is probably getting closer to 2.5, 3 pounds. But yeah, so we've got our mixture in here. Haven't mixed it up yet. I've got my ever-present red spatula. Red, by the way, indicates that it's a high heat, so you can use this in a pan. As long as it's not much over 300 degrees, you're not going to hurt the spatula. I could use this to kind of fold this over. In a lot of situations, I would grab a larger one. but this bowl is so it's small and it gets in the way. So I'm going to go with the spoon, if you will, wooden spoon. Sorry. I'm going to gently give this a toss to try to get the onion, celery, and pickle mixture and the juice to kind of coat the fish, if you will. Surimi is not actually crab leg or lobster. I don't know if anybody thinks that's true or not, but it's actually it's a mixture of fish, typically flounder, fluke. And so even people that typically don't, prefer fish don't mind the surimi. It's what comes in a lot of California rolls, and it's easy to make, like crab dip and stuff like that. But so I've just tossed this so that it's the spices and the mixture of the juice, lemon juice, pickle juice, everything is kind of coated the fish so that I'm not trying to get it to stick to those items here in a moment. My mayonnaise, this is a trick that I've, in the restaurants I've worked at and even in my home, I always store my mayonnaise upside down and I cut a little triangle in that seal. Sometimes the seal will actually break, so you have to be delicate. A tiny little hole there. I'm gonna try to hold this up high. Normally I wouldn't do it. But in a restaurant, we would constantly be having, we would have, squeeze bottles of mayonnaise for, making sandwiches and stuff like that. But for recipes, we just squeeze it right out of the jar. In the restaurant world, we don't use these little jars. Our mayonnaise would come in a gallon-sized jar, quite a bit heavier. I'm putting probably 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise. You can add more if you like. If you put too much mayonnaise, remember there's two kinds of acid in this. That pickle juice is an acidic liquid, and so is the lemon juice. So I don't want to overdo it on the total amount of liquid, or it will separate and start to get runny. And I don't like a runny seafood salad. I want it to be, I want the creaminess to stick to the fish. And now we're going to fold it. I'm not taking the spoon and stirring it. I'm just pushing the spoon underneath and allowing the fish to get out of the way, and it folds over and over and over. And it is literally slowly but surely coating the fish in that mayonnaise. Normally I would, if I was making this for myself, I would use about half Greek yogurt, unflavored or plain Greek yogurt. I don't have any right now because I use it a lot. But so yeah, I'm just giving this a toss, trying to make sure it gets all coated. If you've seen any liquid at the bottom, there's not a lot you can do about it now, but it is what it is. But I think I nailed it. We are looking pretty good. You don't want to overdo it. I'm trying to keep my chunks chunky, trying to keep my sauce all combined. If you were to make this same mixture sans the fish or the surimi, you have very close to what we would make in the restaurant. As a tzatziki sauce, obviously add cucumber. Some tzatziki's have cucumber, some don't. It is what it is. But yeah, so there you go. That's it. It's ready to eat right now. It will get better with time. So I usually make it at least an hour or two before I want to eat it. But I make this large batch, or what I call a large batch for a single person, and I can get, easily get a week out of it, and it's not going to go bad in a week. There's another misnomer, but after a week of all the chemistry happening, it's gonna, the sauce will be very watery. So I try to get this 2 to 3 pound batch. I try to get like maybe 8 portions out of it. I'm not gonna lie to you and say, oh, I only have 4 ounces at a time. If I'm eating this as a meal, I might have an 8 ounce portion. Not a problem at all. It is what it is. Yeah, so at this point, I would snag, if you ever see, I think I have lost my tracking. It is what it is. All right. Over here, I typically leave the Tupperware dishes that I use the most on the counter instead of putting them in the cabinet and constantly having them, fall over, make a big mess. It is what it is. I will tell you that if you use 2 pounds of surimi in these disposable Glad Tupperware things, it won't all fit in there. You can force it in there, but don't try. If you're trying to be efficient, just use another container. Later on tonight, that container might be my entire meal. But yeah, I don't have any juice coming out. So I'm gonna start in the big one. I'm gonna move over to the little one. Put a meal-sized portion in there. Well, maybe it's probably 8 ounces, maybe a little bit more. And then I will dump the rest in here. Some of the onions and celery have kind of started to give up their juice, but it's not liquidy, so we're good. So there we go. I'm not even going to use the rubber spatula. There we go. Give it a little taste. It is what it is. I work an odd schedule. I typically work 2 days on, a couple days off. Every other week I have a 3-day on. And so I always meal prep. I always take for a 3-day, if I'm working 3 days, I'll take 3 days worth of breakfast, 3 days worth of lunch, 3 days worth of snacks. I try to take everything with me. Not because I'm cheap, but I know what food costs. And where I work, there's several cafeterias. I just don't want to pay for what I would make for myself. I would have to pay that same amount for one meal at work. I can take 6 meals and 3 snacks. But anywho, I hope this one was easy for you. This is a great one that you can make. You know, keep it in the fridge for a week. It's going to have a pretty strong onion flavor right out the gate. Even though I use sweet onions, that will mellow out as the acid in this dish kind of does its work. That's it for this one. As I continue to get more comfortable with the camera, I'm sure I will get into more detailed recipes. If you've seen this and you have any questions food-wise, throw them in the comments. Never thought I'd say that. I will probably answer questions on streams. I'm looking forward to doing streams on food and technology. I build computers, gaming computers, and I'd love to start having a little outlet. I get a lot of questions from people that know I'm a chef or knew I was a chef, and they always ask me questions that are, they're not hard to answer, but just because I can answer them quickly doesn't mean that they're easy to perform. So I can do what I can on stream to answer those questions and maybe possibly show you how to do some of those things in the future. Have a great day. Thanks.